Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the webinar on the Ethiopia workshop. Very happy you are here. We have two special guests with us, namely Ato Binyam and Mr. Ato Abraham, two climate change negotiators and experts in Ethiopia. But before we talk to them, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Ethiopia competition we have going on at the moment for you guys. So we're organizing a global journalism workshop by the end of August, by the 25th, 26th, and 27th of August. This workshop will be in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and we have 20 spots to give away to anybody who joins our competition. To win these spots, you will have to write an article about a specific climate change issue, namely climate finance. And if you want to find more about what to write about and how to write about it, you can go to our app.climatetracker.org, and there you can find more about the specifics of this competition. By winning this competition, we will offer 20 spots to the winners who join this workshop, where there will be 3 days of intense workshops and sessions and talks with climate change experts and journalism experts. And we will also be offering stipends, partial stipends, to cover the costs for people to travel to Addis Ababa and to also stay in Addis Ababa. So accommodation and transport will be covered through partial stipends. And people from Ethiopia, but also from the surrounding regions, can join by joining this competition. And to get a better idea of what this workshop will be about, we brought two of the workshop speakers already to you today. And they'll be talking a bit about their experiences with the COPs and the climate change issues in Ethiopia, just so you get a better idea and get some inspiration about what this workshop is about and what you could write about as well to be able to join for this workshop. So I'd like to introduce to you, first of all, Mr. Binyam. Welcome, sir. Could you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. My name is Binyam Yakob. I'm from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change of Ethiopia. I've been taking part in the climate negotiation for the past 3 years now, and starting from being a junior negotiator, I've been following different sessions, intersessional meetings. I used to work as an environmental law expert, now currently coordinating the climate change negotiation only. So thank you very much for the invite.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So you will be one of the speakers on our workshop. So people who apply for the workshop and write this climate change article will be able to get lessons from you and meet you in person. And it's incredible what you do. You have a super interesting job. And could you tell us a little bit more about what exactly you do in your job and how the job you do is important for the future of Ethiopia? Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Okay, thank you very much. Basically, the ministry is mandated with any link between the international and the national things that happen on climate change. So as a focal ministry, what we do as a ministry is make sure we have a nationally coordinated climate change action, and that would link to the international, what we have at an international level. So what I do is I coordinate the international negotiation, bring climate negotiators of Ethiopia together. We coordinate, we come up with a position. As you may know, we are currently chairing the least developed countries group, the negotiating bloc, and also the Climate Vulnerable Forum, which is an informal non-negotiating group. So we try to make sure that whatever is translated nationally is linked with the international outcomes and what we've been reaching. So what we try to do is we try to implement the Paris Agreement and measure international outcomes as a national implementation plan, and somehow link that together. So basically, what I do helps the linking the international and the national ideas together.
Wow. Okay, that's a mouthful. And could you tell us a little bit more about how these national and international developments have already influenced the Ethiopian climate resilience strategies or the Ethiopian politics or Ethiopia's way of dealing with climate change issues in the last couple of years, or for example, since Paris? How has Ethiopia changed its attitude thanks to these international negotiations?
Thank you very much. Well, the developments in the past, not only 2, 3, but in the past 10, we could say 10 years of international negotiations, Ethiopia has been able to create a new momentum to the existing problem. Climate change was not an issue nationally. But these international negotiations have brought a new momentum, a new wave nationally, where everybody now understands the impact of climate change and now aims to act upon it, not only at an institutional level or at a government level, but to the lower community level. Everybody is understanding how much Ethiopia is being vulnerable to climate change and what are the consequences, how we link them with the natural disasters, with the current existing problems like shortage of food and shortage of rain, flooding, drought, and things like that. How do we link it with climate change? These things have been stirring up in people's hearts because of this international agreements. Secondly, this we 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 tried our best. I can't say we fully accomplished, but we tried our best to give an input to the international forum. For instance, we had a contribution in the Paris Agreement as any country, as any party to the UNFCCC. We have been contributing to the overall world's desire to tackle this climate change problem. We were able to make good partnerships. We have currently now a Lima partnership agreement with developed countries where some countries like Sweden, even the US have agreed in Lima to support us in our climate resilient green economy strategy. We've been able to request funding from different bilaterally and multilaterally, and this scope and international forums have been really a good asset for our country.
Wow, super interesting. That's actually summarizing perfectly what these international negotiations do for a particular country. You already mentioned several climate change issues that are really striking in Ethiopia. Maybe Abraham, you could tell us a little bit more about these specific climate change issues in Ethiopia. Maybe first you could shortly introduce yourself. Ato Abraham. I think you're still on mute if you're here.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Hello, we can hear you.
Yeah. Yes. My name is Abraham. I'm currently working at the Ethiopian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the International Organizations Director General as environment and energy expert. In Ethiopia's side, yes, there has been some initiatives and programs which were incorporated to Ethiopia's national growth and development strategy, and this includes on investment on renewable energy, on shifting the transport and other major economic sectors in the country to be more emission free, or at least minimizing the emission. So the country is planning to have a net zero emission by 2025, and this is the strategy so far. And there's been a lot of investments made on renewable energy, mainly to address the power generation sector. Also, a shift in various infrastructure outlets. There's been a major installation of electric railway scheme in the country, and currently this is better serving public on transports, and most of the power sources in the country is from renewable, which is hydro. There's a abundance of hydro energy in Ethiopia, and this is some of the main energy related investments done by Ethiopian government.
So Abraham, would you say that Ethiopia is a very progressive country in terms of climate change adaptation, climate change measures, sorry, not adaptation, climate change measures to bring its country forwards to zero emissions and so on? Do you think Ethiopia in general is then a country that's very progressive in climate change measures?
Yeah, it's trying to set very ambitious targets in very different dimensions. At the same time, there are a lot of projects on the ground, starting from assessing the air quality and trying to develop mitigation alternatives and also energy alternatives to reach into these goals. Of course, these are heavily depending on funding and financial availability to different institutions responsible for executing these tasks. However, there has been a great awakening and a great pledge by Ethiopian side, and then international determined contributions made by Ethiopian government to reduce emissions by 64%, business as usual, is also some promising and ambitious goal made, and it's still ambitious, but it's also integrated into different sectors of the country's economic, social, and financial directions.
Okay, so you're saying that Ethiopia has quite an ambitious climate action plan in several different sectors of the country. Ato Binyam, if I could ask you, why do you think that Ethiopia has such an ambitious plan? And maybe linked to that, is that also a reason why, for example, it's at the moment a president of the CVF, of the Climate Vulnerable Forum? Why is Ethiopia, or what are the reasons why Ethiopia is so vulnerable at the moment for climate change? Are there already impacts you can see, climate change impacts? Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting question. Basically, I see it as two major elements that contribute to the vulnerability of Ethiopia. One being the existing geographic location where it makes us vulnerable to the existing climate change, like the El Nino effect and things like that. And the second being the current economic status that limits us from adapting to the problem that's currently recurring and occurring. So these two factors majorly contribute, among other things, of course, majorly contribute to the overall vulnerability of the country. And Ethiopia has been witnessing different climate change issues starting from the past 50 years or so. I mean, there has been many, but not technically recognized as the problems related to climate change. But we've been seeing recurring droughts, especially the period in which they used to recur is now decreasing. So the time where every 10 years drought used to come, now it's more 5 years and 6 years. We are having a very high shortage of rain, and we are highly dependent on it's a water-fed agriculture. So basically, we are dependent on rainfall, and 80% of the economy is agriculture. So anyone can notice the possible impact if there is an actual rain loss. There would be a direct impact on agriculture. So this makes Ethiopia a very vulnerable country.
Thank you very much. So you're saying that Ethiopia is a very vulnerable country for climate change. That's also one of the reasons why it might be so ambitious in different energy sectors, in infrastructures, in reducing its emissions, when really tackling climate change. Is climate financing one of the strategies that Ethiopia is considering to make itself more climate resilient? Ato Binyam, do you think climate finance is an important part of the solution for Ethiopia?
Thank you. To start with the first issue that you've raised, we have not drafted an ambitious target just to get an international applause, but because we have made an economic analysis of which one would actually be sustainable. We have seen a very strong economic growth in the past few years, and we want to make sure that is sustainable enough to make sure the next generation would benefit from that growth, and not something that we would end up going down in the coming 10 or 15 years. So it's not a matter of luxury, but a matter of necessity that Ethiopia chose a greener pathway. One of the benefits of, I can't say benefit actually, but one of the best things that developing countries have is the capacity to leapfrog on some things and learn from what other countries have taken in the past years for their development. So we've learned a lot. We've learned from the European, from the American, and even from China. We've learned on how we should track our development. So this development comes with a cost. If we're planning to take the greener pathway, it's definitely going to cost us, and that cannot be dealt only with the national budget, which means an adequate additional terms that we've been using in the international negotiations, like additional finance other than the 100 billion by 2020 and things like that. They are really crucial because we cannot actually meet the adaptation cost or the mitigation cost only by the national budget, because we have different priorities. We have issues like food security, we have infrastructure development, and parallelly we have to develop in a greener pathway. That does not mean Ethiopia would be only seeking international finance to implement the CRG. We've been setting aside national budgets to implement some of the interventions, but major interventions do actually need huge amount of finance, and we're expecting the international finance. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was a very perfect and complete answer. And I really like the quote where you said climate financing and being ambitious is not a matter of choice, but a matter of necessity. So I really like that one. That's really great. I have a last question for Otto Abraham. Could you tell us, to sum up, like, in what way could people who are not in your high position close to the Ministry of Environment, close to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in what way could ordinary people, young people, try and contribute in making changes for their country, to make their country a more resilient country against climate change? How could people contribute to that one? It's a difficult question, I know. But...
yeah, of course. It's hard to generalize like the solutions in one box. However, as government and the people all together working in different dimensions, and this, you know, most of African countries, specifically Ethiopia, has a large population of young people, and mostly young people between 16 to 35. These are the majority of the society group, and in our country, almost 80 to 85% of our population lives in rural settings, and this makes them also dependent on our agriculture system, because most of the people in the country, they depend on agriculture practices, and still urbanization is still happening, but the change is not sharp. So it's still we are saying a lot of people living in rural areas and also including urban areas will have to be taking personal initiatives, and also the government need to incentivize and engage this young population into different streams of development, and also into different streams of mitigation and adaptation practices to reach its ambitious goals. And this comes into investment on climate finance and carbon trading, and also when it's coming to recovering lands which are already degraded by climate change impacts, to taking voluntary actions by use and various local clubs. I would say this kind of individuals initiatives and social initiatives, group initiatives could put some solution on the ground at the grassroots level. And in a larger settings where government need to advocate for more education on universities and professional environments and farmer unions and different associations, which a lot of people could be accessed, and to mainstream the education of climate change, the impact, and as well as individual solutions.
Okay, wow, thank you. Okay. You're mentioning a lot of different tactics and ways to approach this problem, from focusing on agriculture and making agriculture more sustainable to having some grassroots movements, to having better educational systems, to, of course, the international negotiations you guys are on top of. So there's a lot of ways and a lot of tactics, ways people can contribute in trying to address climate change in Ethiopia, in Africa, in the rest of the world. Another important way we can tackle climate change issues is by making them more aware, by making them a topic of public discussion, and that's exactly what we want to do here at Climate Tracker, by motivating all of you to write about climate change issues, especially in Ethiopia, especially in Eastern Africa and the rest of Africa, where these climate change issues are having a major impact on millions of people. That's why we're trying to motivate all of you to write about climate change issues, about climate finance, climate change in general, to make a difference and to make people aware of how important climate change issues are for their daily lives and for their future and for the future of their children. And so if you want to contribute in this way, by writing about it, by making sure that this stays a topic of the public debate, then make sure to write for Climate Tracker and try and join this competition, because you'll have the chance to talk with these two fine gentlemen much more and in a personal way. You'll have the chance to get media training by some of our best climate trackers out there. And we hope to train many of you to become really good climate change journalists and to contribute to the public debate on climate change, like those two gentlemen are contributing to international negotiations on climate change. So I'd like to thank both of you, Ato Binyam and Ato Abraham, for this very refreshing and very learnful, very thoughtful conversation we had together. I don't think there's any questions at the moment from anybody in the audience. If anybody has more questions on the workshop or on personal questions for those gentlemen here, feel free to send us a message on the Facebook link where this video will be shown. And we hope that many of you will join our workshop. I'd like to thank you both, Ato Abraham and Ato Binyam, and see you guys soon at the workshop in Addis Ababa. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.